You ever have one of those nights where everything feels a little too perfect? That was me, Thursday evening, dressed sharper than usual in a navy jacket I hadn't worn since our anniversary dinner. My wife, Audrey, insisted I meet her at a fancy downtown restaurant. White tablecloths, overpriced wine, and soft piano music that felt like the soundtrack to a proposal. Or a farewell. I didn't know which yet. The hostess greeted me with a smile like she knew a secret. "Mr. Barrett? Right this way." When I walked in, I saw her already seated. Hair curled. Wine poured. One candle flickering between two champagne flutes, hers empty, mine full. Romantic? Sure. But Audrey wasn't the romantic type. Not anymore. "Hey, stranger," she said as I sat down. "I feel like I'm walking into a scene," I joked, tugging at my collar. "You kind of are," she said. "But let's eat first." Now, here's the thing, Audrey had this gift. A way of buttering you up before dropping the hammer. She could start a breakup with a compliment and end it with a dessert menu. I wasn't sure what she was serving that night, but I knew the main course wasn't going to be steak. We chatted through appetizers, light stuff, work, our dog, the neighbor's noisy rooster. But something was off. Her smile was forced. Her eyes flicked to the door every few minutes. And the second I reached for the champagne flute, she stopped me. "Actually, I think we should wait to toast," she said. "To what?" "You'll see." Then he walked in. Tall, smug, button-down shirt unbuttoned one too many levels. He made eye contact with Audrey first, then me, like we were both roles in a play he'd already rehearsed. She stood up. "Logan, this is Trevor." "Trevor." The name sounded like a pulled muscle. "Trevor and we work together," she said. "He just got promoted." He extended a hand. I looked at it, then at Audrey. "This some kind of work party I wasn't invited to?" I asked. Trevor smiled like he'd already won. "Oh, this isn't work," he said. "Not anymore." And just like that, the evening turned. So there we were, me, Audrey, and Trevor the human cologne ad, sitting at a table built for intimacy, forced into a triangle of awkward silence and shallow sips. Audrey tried to keep it classy. She reached for her fork like this was just another night out, like she hadn't invited her coworker, and I say that with the heaviest quotation marks I can mentally muster, to join our conversation. "Trevor?" He made himself comfortable real fast. Loosened his top button like he was prepping for a victory lap. "Audrey's told me a lot about you," he said with a half-smile that suggested none of it was flattering. I looked at Audrey. She stared down at her napkin like it might offer her an escape plan. "Yeah," I said. "Funny. She's never mentioned you." That was a lie, of course. She had. Once or twice. Quick mentions during her late-night rants about office incompetence. Trevor the marketing guru. Trevor who thinks he's God's gift to analytics. Should have known that kind of sarcasm only ever comes from one of two places: hate or infatuation. "I didn't expect this to be easy," Audrey said finally, her voice low but rehearsed. "Then don't expect me to make it easy for you," I replied. Trevor leaned in, elbows on the table like this was a chess match he'd been dying to play. "We didn't want it to happen like this, man. But things evolve." "Evolve," I repeated, taking a slow sip of the champagne she'd wanted me to wait on. Nice word for betrayal. Audrey flinched, but not enough. She'd already made peace with her decision. You could see it in her posture. Not guilt, just discomfort. Like I was the awkward final meeting on a Friday afternoon. I set the glass down. "So, what is this? You two announcing something? Moving in? Or did you just want to see what kind of face I'd make when the knife twisted?" Trevor raised his hands. "Look, I told Audrey we should wait. You've been together a long time." 10 years, I cut in. Married for 6. But who's counting, right? He didn't respond. Just looked back at Audrey like he expected her to clean up the mess. She didn't. Instead, she said, "We thought it was best if you heard it from us. Together." That was her idea of mercy. I stood up, napkin sliding off my lap and onto the chair. "You two enjoy your champagne." Audrey reached for my arm. "Logan, don't do this." "No," I said, calm and even. "You already did it." And then I left. They say betrayal doesn't slap, it seeps. Slow. Quiet. Like water under your floorboards until one day your whole foundation just gives out. Mine gave out about 6 hours after that dinner. I got home, pulled into our driveway like I was still married, still respected, still relevant. The porch light was on. She left it for me. Out of habit, maybe. Or guilt. Either way, it felt like a joke. Like taping a Band-Aid to a bullet hole. Inside, the house was clean. Too clean. You could smell the effort. Lavender-scented cover-up, probably from one of those Zen candles she lights when she's trying to hide something. I stood in the living room for a long moment, just listening. The silence was heavy, like the walls were trying to apologize. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't shocked she cheated. I was shocked how long she'd rehearsed. Because this wasn't new. That dinner? That was the epilogue. She'd been editing the chapters for months. Late nights at work. Locked phones. Weekend yoga retreats she never came back from sore. And the final nail, her calling me distant while she drifted into someone else's arms. My phone buzzed. A message from her. I didn't want you to find out like that. I stared at it for a moment. Then another one came. You deserve the truth. We've been unhappy for a while. No apology. No remorse. Just a soft landing for her conscience. And then, because the universe has a flair for dramatic timing, I got the truth. An airdrop request. From someone anonymous. A file named. For Logan. You should know. I accepted. It was a folder. Screenshots. Messages. Photos. All time-stamped. All hers. Some were texts to Trevor, others to a third number labeled C. The highlights? He doesn't even suspect a thing. He still calls me babe. I told Logan I had a conference, LOL. We're at the cabin. I don't think I can keep doing both. I feel like I'm married to a ghost. The last photo? Her. In our bed. With someone who was not Trevor. That's when I stopped scrolling. Trevor was the distraction. The real betrayal was still in play. And suddenly, everything made sense. The rush to break the news. The performative dinner. The smug calm in her voice. Trevor wasn't plan A. He was the cover fire. She knew I'd fixate on him. She counted on it. But now? Now I knew the truth. And that was when the revenge started writing itself. There's a kind of stillness that hits you when reality shatters. Not panic. Not fury. Just a cold, calculating stillness. Like your brain puts everything on mute so it can rearrange the wreckage without distraction. That's where I was, sitting in the dark, surrounded by the remnants of a life I thought I understood. And in my lap? Her phone. Not Audrey's, no. That one stayed locked tighter than her conscience. This was a burner. Hidden in the bottom of her closet behind an old shoebox of vacation photos. I only found it because something inside me snapped and told me, check the closet. The kind of gut instinct that only kicks in after your world implodes. It was an old iPhone, no passcode. Like it didn't need one. Like she never thought I'd look. Or maybe she wanted me to. Maybe that airdrop wasn't from some mystery savior. Maybe it was from her, setting fire to the house so no one could see how long the rot had been growing. Inside the phone, texts, photos, videos, names I didn't recognize. Names I did. Not just Trevor. Not just the guy from the photo labeled C. But at least two others. Casual, chaotic, cataloged like trophies. She didn't have lovers. She had seasons. And me? I was just the off-season. The background noise between chapters. There was one message thread that stuck out. Contact name was just a purple heart emoji. That's all. I opened it. Purple circle. You're sure he has no idea? Audrey. Not a clue. He still leaves his socks by the bed and thinks I find it charming. Purple circle. Your evil face with ears of joy. Audrey. Evil keeps the mortgage paid. Sweetheart. I stared at that one for a long time. Because I'd said that line about the socks when we first moved in together. She laughed. Told me it was cute. Turns out, she just filed it away for when she needed to mock me. You ever feel like your memories betrayed you? That's what that line did. Made me doubt every inside joke, every whispered promise, every look that once made me feel like the world narrowed down to just us two. Not rage yet. Not even grief. Just surgical clarity. And with clarity comes action. I started with the calendar. Audrey had a habit of syncing everything to the cloud. Shared reminders, appointments, gym classes, even haircuts. All tied to a LoganAudrey.life shared folder. Because branding, I guess. I opened it up, and there it was, color-coded betrayal. Work conference in Portland? That was actually C.S. cabin weekend. Late client dinner? That aligned nicely with a string of photos at a rooftop bar I'd never been invited to. But the kicker, the one that really salted the wound, was labeled Self-Care Day, Spa Plus Meditation. You know what that actually was? A trip to our friend's engagement party. With Trevor. She had RSVP'd for one. Told me it was too awkward for both of us to go because the bride used to date me in college. I believed her. Like an idiot holding a bucket under a ceiling leak while the house floods behind him. You know what's ironic? I never once checked her laptop. Not in 6 years of marriage. Not even when she got weird about passwords or switched from Mac to iPad for minimalism. I just nodded, trusted her. So when I opened it that night, after watching her sink into sleep like a woman with no unfinished business, I wasn't expecting much. But there it was. A folder named Archive buried in the depths of her iCloud. Inside, journals. Not the handwritten kind with locks and leather. These were digital, organized by date, like she was filing evidence. And boy, the entries. March 9th. Logan's been weirdly sweet lately. Guilt maybe? It's almost adorable how hard he's trying. If only he knew what I let Trevor do in the parking lot yesterday. May 27th. I think about telling him sometimes. Just blurting it out. But what would be the point? He'd just fall apart. And then I'd feel obligated to stay. Easier to let him think we're drifting, not drowning. August 14th. 3 guys. 3 weekends. He still thinks I'm on a cleanse. There was no pain in her words. Just detachment. Like she was reviewing someone else's life from a distance. Like I was the afterthought in my own marriage. At exactly 3:07 a.m., I closed the laptop and stood up. That was the moment something shifted. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't trash the house or make a scene. That's not my style. No, I just grabbed a pen and a notepad, sat back down at the kitchen counter, and started making a list. The plan, I titled it. It had 6 bullet points. Lawyer first. Quietly. No dramatic ultimatums. Just facts and filings. Asset freeze. I'd been the financial brains of the marriage. She just signed things. That would work in my favor. Photos plus evidence. Everything cataloged. No threats. No need. Tell her, nothing. Let her live in the illusion a little longer. Contact C. Find out how far the rot goes. The final note. No yelling. No begging. Just a letter that ends the show. You see, Audrey thought she staged the final act. She lit the fuse, brought in the villain, and stood there with her champagne, waiting for the explosion. But she forgot something important. I build endings for a living. I'm in corporate strategy, and I never walk away from a collapsing structure without one last, well-placed demolition. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek. Said, "You seem calmer today." I smiled back. I finally got some sleep. She laughed. "That's good. You were so tense yesterday." I nodded. "I think everything's going to be just fine." She turned away, humming. Something poppy and upbeat. And just like that, she walked right back into the story she thought she was writing. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly guess, was that I'd picked up the pen now, and I was rewriting the ending. Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't make you weaker. Not if you play it right. It sharpens you, pulls back the curtain, and hands you the script they were hoping you'd never see. And once you've got the script, you start directing. 3 days after I found the burner phone, I was still playing husband, still folding laundry, still asking about her kombucha obsession like I actually cared. Audrey thought she had me where she wanted, stunned, confused, off balance. What she didn't know was that I had already hired a lawyer. A good one. Cold-blooded, high retainer, sleeps in a tie kind of guy. Met him under the guise of a lunch meeting in an office park no one drives past unless they're getting audited. His name was Carter. First thing he said after reviewing my evidence, "Mr. Barrett, you're sitting on a gold mine. You want blood or peace?" I smiled. I want her to think she's getting away with it. He leaned back. "Cruel peace. I like that." We started with financials. Because despite Audrey's habit of condescension about my spreadsheets, she never paid attention to the accounts. I'd handled all our joint investments, set up the emergency funds, paid off the house in my name. Her idea of financial planning was buying oat milk in bulk. Carter drafted the papers, clean, precise, invisible. A quiet prenup buried in our marriage agreement would do the heavy lifting. Audrey had never read it, only skimmed. "We're not going to divorce," she said back then. "So what's the point?" "Well, sweetheart, now we know." I moved assets, liquidated what I could, shifted cash into protected holdings. Legally, quietly. By the time she'd be ready to lawyer up, all she'd have was the faux Scandinavian furniture and half a bottle of elderberry extract. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I needed a test. Something small, subtle, something to gauge who else she'd roped in. So I gave her a canary. It's an old information security trick. Feed each suspect a slightly different version of a lie and see which one leaks. I told Audrey I might be heading to Chicago in 2 weeks. Work trip. She blinked at me across her morning smoothie. "Oh," she asked casually. "Is that the analytics conference thing?" Nope, I replied, sipping coffee. Client merger. Might be big. NDA level stuff. She nodded too quickly, like someone mentally noting a future opportunity. 3 days later, I got a message. From an unknown number. It just said, Chicago. Huh? She's good. But not that good. No name. No follow-up. Just confirmation. My suspicions were right. Trevor wasn't the only one she confided in. Someone was watching her from the sidelines. Maybe even enabling it. Now I had 2 missions. Identify the ghost and set the trap. That weekend, I invited Trevor over. Yeah, I know. It sounds insane. But I needed a closer look at the man she was willing to torture her life for. The man who thought he'd won some prize without realizing the box was rigged. I told Audrey it'd be good to clear the air. She was thrilled. Thought it was me finally accepting reality. Just drinks, I told her. Maybe a backyard chat. Man to man. She beamed like I had handed her a permission slip. Trevor showed up with expensive whiskey and a fake smile. Wore one of those fitted shirts that screams I use my abs as a personality trait. He extended a hand. Logan, thanks for this. I didn't expect, well, generosity. I shook it. Firm grip. Dry palm. No soul behind the eyes. We sat on the patio. Audrey brought out chips like we were neighbors discussing a fence line. She played hostess, light on words but heavy on glances. Then she went back inside. And I made my move. So, I said, pouring him a drink. How's your cabin trip with Audrey last month? You guys have fun? He stiffened. Just enough for me to notice. Cabin? Yeah, I said casually. She told me about it. Said it was therapeutic. His mouth twitched. Yeah, it was. I think she really needed the space. So thoughtful of you, I said, clinking glasses. Taking her somewhere so private. Intimate. He looked like he was trying to decide whether this was a trap. He was right to wonder. But I gotta ask, Trevor, I said after a beat. Do you think she's being honest with you? That threw him. What? Just asking. Because, see, you're what, number 3? 4? I can't keep track anymore. She's good at making people feel like they're the center of her universe. He sat there, stunned. No comeback. Just confusion morphing into slow, dawning dread. I gave him a gentle smile. You didn't know? He didn't answer. He just stared into his glass like it might have the answers. I don't blame you, I added. She's persuasive. Dangerous, even. Makes you feel chosen. But Audrey's not in love with you, Trevor. She's in love with attention. You just happen to fit the theme of the month. He left not long after. Quiet. Pale. Not a single drop of whiskey left behind. Audrey asked later, what did you say to him? I shrugged. Nothing. Just man talk. By Monday, Trevor had blocked her. Texts, calls, socials gone. Vapor. Audrey was livid. Pacing the kitchen, muttering to herself like she'd lost a promotion instead of a side piece. I don't get it, she snapped. He just ghosted me. I looked up from my laptop. Maybe he got tired of secrets. She stopped mid-stride, eyes narrowing. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. I mean, who wants to share their girl with 2 other guys? She froze. 2. Oh, don't act surprised, Audrey. I've got names. Timestamps. Even a few souvenirs. The color drained from her face. You went through my stuff? I leaned back in my chair. Calm. I'd waited for this. No, Audrey. You left your stuff everywhere. I just stopped pretending not to see it. She looked like she wanted to explode. But she didn't. Because something finally clicked. This wasn't a confession. This was a warning. Audrey stopped smiling that week. Not just at me, but at her phone, her mirror, even the neighbor's golden retriever she used to fawn over like it was our kid. The charm, the performative warmth, gone. And I have to tell you, watching her world shrink from smug superiority to quiet panic, that was better than any apology she could have given. She thought I'd lose it. Thought I'd scream or cry or move out like the standard issue scorned husband. But I didn't. I made coffee. I went to work. I offered to pick up dinner. Because there's nothing more terrifying to a guilty person than a calm partner who knows everything and says nothing. That silence? It was my favorite weapon. By Thursday, she cracked. We were sitting on the couch, the air so thick you could spread it on toast. She had her knees drawn up, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands like she was trying to become smaller. She kept glancing over, like she was waiting for me to ask, where were you Tuesday night? Why are you pacing the bedroom at 2 a.m.? Who's calling you from a contact saved as Monica Pilates? But I didn't ask. So she spoke. Logan, she began. I think we need to talk. I didn't pause the TV, just lowered the volume. I haven't been fair to you, she said. I nodded. No argument here. Her eyes flicked to mine. She wasn't expecting agreement. She was expecting resistance. A chance to look noble in contrast. I've been confused, she said. About what? Your contacts list. That landed. I saw it hit behind her eyes, like a fish hook catching in the back of her throat. She looked away. I made mistakes, she said quietly. I turned off the TV. Audrey, stop. You didn't make mistakes. You made plans. You scheduled betrayal like it was a hair appointment. You cheated, I said evenly. Multiple times. With people you brought into my house, into my bed. You lied. You smiled while you did it. And now, what? You want a round of applause because you've decided to admit a fraction of it. Her lip trembled, and for a second, I thought the tears were coming. But they didn't. Not because she was brave. Because she was still calculating. She still thought there might be a version of this where she comes out with her dignity intact. There was something missing between us, she said. I felt like I was disappearing. I stood up, hands in my pockets, trying not to laugh. You weren't disappearing, Audrey. You were just bored. And instead of talking to me, you turned our marriage into an audition tape. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean to hurt you. No, you meant to replace me. That night, she slept on the couch. Not because I asked her to. Because she knew the bed didn't belong to her anymore. Not in spirit. Not in story. And definitely not in the new, well, I'd quietly updated the day before. Yeah, I'd been busy. That was the beauty of quiet revenge. It's not about rage. It's about redesign. She'd spent months redesigning her life behind my back, so I started redrawing the lines around her future. Step 1, the social circle. I started reaching out to our shared friends. Not with drama. Not with sob stories. Just a few carefully timed coffee chats. A golf game here. A happy hour there. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. Things with Audrey are complicated. I'd begin. And they'd start talking. Turns out, everyone always knew something. She always flirted a little too hard at parties. I saw her once with a guy in a car on Maple. Thought it was a client. She told me once she didn't think you were ambitious enough. Each revelation added another stitch in the tapestry. By the end of the week, her support system was a lot quieter. The You Go Girl brigade that would have rallied behind her 6 days ago? Gone. Step 2, the legal frame. Carter, my lawyer, called it the box. The goal, he said, is to make her think she's still in the driver's seat until she looks around and realizes the car has no wheels. So we built the box. An airtight, fireproof, smile-on-the-face kind of plan. I transferred all joint accounts to individual ones under my name, citing financial clarity for tax season. I removed her as a beneficiary on every insurance policy. I notified her work HR, quietly, that we'd be separating, so they'd route any joint correspondence through me. And I set the filing date for next Friday, 10 a.m. sharp. Audrey would be served at home, with a checklist, a pen, and a key that no longer fit the front door. But first, I needed a final piece. Not evidence. Perspective. So I reached out to C, the guy from the photo in her phone. The real affair behind the affair. His name was Elliot. We met in a cafe downtown. Neutral ground. I arrived early, wearing the same suit I'd worn to our wedding. Petty, I know, but you take your poetry where you can get it. He showed up 10 minutes late, nervous, hairline retreating, fake confidence dripping off him like bad cologne. Logan, he said, offering a hand. Appreciate you meeting me. I didn't shake it. I just want to say, he continued. I had no idea she was married when we first. Save it, I cut in. I'm not here for apologies. He blinked. Then why? I leaned in. Because I wanted to see the man Audrey was willing to risk everything for. And now that I have, I stood. I'm not even mad. I'm just embarrassed for her. And I left him there, holding his latte like it might explain the taste of regret. When I got home, Audrey was in the kitchen, scrolling her phone. Everything okay? She asked, as if she were still owed an answer. Better than ever, I said, heading for the stairs. The week had started with a question. What do you do when the person you love betrays you completely? Here's what I learned. You don't beg. You don't scream. You build a world so complete without them, their absence feels like peace. And then, you invite them to watch it from the outside. Friday came. Bright, ordinary, unassuming. The kind of morning that doesn't warn you it's about to end an entire chapter of your life. Audrey was in the kitchen, in a robe, sipping coffee and humming something tuneless. I watched her from the hallway for a moment. Not with hate, not even sadness. Just clarity. Like I was watching an actress walk off the set of a show I used to love before I realized the script was garbage. At 9:58, I stepped outside. At 10 o'clock, the process server rang the doorbell. I watched from the car as Audrey opened the door in her robe, eyebrows raised, then dropped into a frown as the envelope was handed over. She didn't look shocked. Not really. Just defeated. The server nodded and walked away. Audrey stood there holding the envelope like it might explode. She called me 8 minutes later. "You're divorcing me?" "No, Audrey," I said, already halfway to my lawyer's office. I already did. The divorce papers weren't dramatic. They were surgical, clean, precise, crafted by a man who didn't want revenge in the form of chaos, but in control. Audrey would get her car, a stipend for 3 months, just to keep her pride from collapsing entirely. Everything else? Gone. The house? Mine before the marriage. The retirement accounts? Shielded. The investment properties? Listed under my LLC. The dog? Hers, because I knew he preferred the mailman anyway. She texted later that day. "I thought you said we'd work on things." I said I was thinking. Turns out, I was thinking exit strategy. She called again. I didn't answer. By Monday, her sister had reached out. "Can we talk?" "We are." "No. I mean, really." Then start with the part where you told Audrey she could do better. She didn't reply after that. The circle was closing. I wasn't torching bridges. I was building walls. And one by one, I watched as the people who enabled her tried to climb them, only to realize they were locked out too. Audrey moved out on a Thursday. No scene. No tears. Just a cardboard box parade and a ride from someone in a tan Lexus I didn't recognize. Probably Monica from Pilates. She didn't look back. Good. A week later, I hosted a barbecue. Small guest list. Just real friends, no one who ever said, "Marriage is hard for everyone," while knowing she was out collecting options like wine labels. As we grilled burgers and clinked drinks, someone asked, "So, how are you doing, really?" I smiled. The honest kind. The post-wreckage, survive the crash kind. I said, like I finally woke up. And it was true. Because the version of me who clung to that marriage? He was gone. Buried somewhere between the second burner phone and the fourth fake yoga retreat. What remained? Steel, focus, and freedom. A month passed. Then 2. Then a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Audrey. I know I don't deserve a response. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't know who I am without you. I thought I was chasing happiness, but all I caught was noise. You were always steady, always kind. I just didn't know what that meant until it was gone. She ended with, "If you ever want to talk, even just as friends, I'd be grateful." I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and placed it on top of a pile in a drawer labeled past due. Then I grabbed my keys and headed out. Not for revenge, not for closure. Just a mountain trail, my camera, and a sky that didn't ask questions. Because I had already answered the most important one. Who wins in betrayal? Not the loud one. Not the one who moves on first. Not the one who cheats or the one who hurts. The one who rebuilds. The one who walks out quietly and locks the door behind him